Welcome back to the David Elstein podcast. I'm really excited to talk to our next guest, Dr. Todd Dewett. Dr. Dewett is a best-selling leadership author, educator, and speaker. After beginning his career with Anderson Consulting and Ernst & Young, he completed his PhD in organizational behavior at Texas A&M University and enjoyed a career as an award-winning professor. Today, he is a widely recognized expert on authenticity, leadership, relationships, and success. He speaks, writes, and has created an educational library of courses enjoyed by millions of professionals in nearly every country in the world. Hi, Dr. Dewett. Welcome to the podcast.
Hey, how are you? And thanks for having me.
You're welcome. So where are you joining us from today?
Houston, Texas, my home base.
Wonderful. So I love this quote that I found on your website. You said, I teach leaders and teams to get unstuck so they can start growing quickly. What does that mean?
Well, there's not a ton of mystery in what happens at work. We just get so bloated with tasks and relationship stress that we don't see the obvious. Most people who are stuck aren't facing something radically complex. They just need a little more lucidity. People from the outside, whether it's a coach, an educator of different types like myself, are just helping them to better frame, think through, organize their thoughts, which almost always helps them go, you're right, the path forward is simple and clear. I just couldn't quite see it because I feel so foggy every day with all the stress and all the work that we do. So that's my job, is to give that clarity. That's what it means to get them unstuck.
Okay, great. So I first learned about you, I guess, about 3 years ago on LinkedIn Learning. I was a new manager at work, wanted to learn anything I could about being a manager. And I sort of had a similar feeling then that I did when I was a new father. Is there any way I can succeed at this? What is one mistake you often see new managers do?
How long is this podcast, sir? Okay. I got to tell you, there's a bunch. It's a very difficult job. Leading other humans to do anything productively can be very, very difficult. The most common one by far is thinking that you know what leadership is about the first time you're promoted out of functional specialty, whatever that might be. You're an engineer, you're an accountant, and now someone says, your work's great, and I like the way you handle yourself, and I think you're going to be a fine manager. Now you're the leader of this team of 6 people, or whatever the number might be. Go for it, do well. And they step into that role confidently because they've won the awards and had the promotions, and they think that the boss was probably right. And then they find out that leading people, instead of doing accounting or doing engineering, very, very different set of skills. Now we're talking about a huge premium, for example, on communication and what it means to listen and to motivate, and different ways to creatively be helpful, to help others do their job. To be a facilitator more than an actual doer is what you've become. And most people find that to be very surprising and challenging to work through.
So that's great. Using your example, a lot of these cases you're saying is the person comes from the doer, that now they are managing the people that they were doing it with. So how do they get respect? How do they work? How do they have people work for them when they used to work with them? It's a different dynamic.
It's interesting because you don't think about that as a colleague nearly as much as you do when you become a boss. You have to start caring about how you're perceived in a new way. You don't want to be overly curt and directive and telling people the imperfections that you see or that you wish to avoid. You lead from a positive place instead, a place of, do you have what you need? How can I be helpful? This is interesting. I'm not sure it's complete, but what you did there makes a lot of sense to me. Can you explain to me why you did this part this way? So you're trying to learn how to relate to someone in a way that is transparent and honest and kind. And this is a word you mentioned a minute ago, authentic. So one great way to answer the question that you just asked is to never act like a boss, but instead to act like a human, imperfect and flailing around in the dark sometimes like humans do. Because if you can be honest about that, hey, you know what? I'm in the first year of being a manager, and it is more difficult than I ever imagined. It's more stressful than I ever imagined. And if I don't give you exactly what you need sometimes, that's probably on me. And I just want to encourage you to speak up and let me know so that we can do what we do even better. That was me just trying to be real about how I struggle as I grow, just like everyone else. A little more authenticity, and people go, that guy's human and doing his best, even if we don't always agree.
A lot of times I think we think as leaders, we want them confident, but being authentic, you want them, infallible, but you want them to know the answer as when you're the person under them. So how do you sort of balance the two with the confidence and authenticity?
So the question really it gives the answer. It's a really fun topic. I always like to say that confidence and competence are very essential. They are. No doubt you're correct to bring it up. They're just the foundation, though. How do you maximize what you can do with that? Well, if on top of that, if in addition to that, you can be a little more human and open about a mistake you made last year that the team doesn't even know about that taught you something important, even if it hurt at the time. So if you can take the confidence and the competence, the expertise, and on top of that, sprinkle the humanity in, that's the combination that gets them. Now, you don't want every day to have a power circle of people holding hands and crying and sharing their darkest moments in life. I'm not saying you have to be a psychologist or a therapist of any kind. I am saying that you have to be more than a professional. So just to frame this in listeners' minds, maybe 2/3 of your success is about confidence and competence. A good third is the occasional sprinkle of that humanity on top of it, so they see the person, not just the professional.
No, that's great. And so I've been in the communications, public relations field for about 25 years. Most of the people that listen to this, communications, marketing folks. So, sometimes in our roles, we get nervous when a leader is authentic. We want them to say the quote unquote right thing so we don't have a heart attack. So I guess sort of it's similar questions. Like, how do you balance the need for, authentic leader like a CEO, but without, giving either the communications department, the counsel, the lawyers a heart attack? How do you balance the two?
Well, that reality is true. You're correct to bring it up. Being real is not risk free. My estimation, as a guy who's thought about this for many, many years, is that corporate life is overrun with the risk management types who are very worried about how this will be interpreted and that'll be interpreted. We should care about how things are interpreted. I'm simply alleging, as an observer of thousands of companies, that we over-invest in that and we under-invest in getting real. So that's the first response, is that we've just gone in one direction far too much, such that the little sprinkle that I'm encouraging, it's going to be perceived by some as different, if not jarring. So did I say this to you? There are different leadership styles and different cultures in organizations. And not everyone is going to like you, even if you listen to me, and everyone who does versions of what I do doesn't mean that everyone's going to like you. Or as a pro speaker, one of the things that I also do for years, I never have 100% of an audience going, that was the best speech I ever heard. Never. We have a high average compared to non-professionals, but we don't get it every time. So I would say, how do you feel about being a little more real, a little more raw, a little more authentic? How do you feel? How do you think that's going to mesh with the culture where you work? And if it's your assessment, it's just going to get you in trouble, I don't blame you for kind of censoring a little more. But if you want to be sane and healthy, I would encourage you to start thinking about long-term career management, to find a place you can call home where being a little more really you is in fact not risky. So that takes work and mobility, but the goal is to be able to be a little more authentic without worrying about those risks.
It all makes sense. I think what I'm almost going at is just me as a leader. I want to be authentic, but sometimes we get worried about the people that represent the company, which I understand everything you're saying, but it's like, yes, because we don't want to be fake. We want to take risks, because I think it's boring if we don't, and you don't succeed if you don't fail. Your point about, not being, 100% of the audience like you, well, that's probably good. That'd be bad almost, I think, if you didn't, because not to say you're offending people as you speak, but you need to provoke. And some people don't want to be provoked. I'm sure you could speak more on that. They just want to hear what they want to hear. They don't want to be challenged.
Well, we have trained the members of corporate life. We've trained them to be tame and to stay within the guardrails and to not say certain things and to say other things all the time. They know, without having rules given to them, how to behave and how to speak. And when you shake that up, it makes people nervous. And that's unfortunate, because, my first love as an academic back in the day was creativity and innovation. Companies love to talk about how they've got creative people. They embrace change. They support innovation. And they're usually completely full of it because they hate risk. They would much rather talk about how they're embracing it in the tiniest of ways. It's really not that impressive. Sometimes outright misleading comments, to be honest, because the average worker, and I've seen this a million times. I listen to the CEO's speech, I look at the website and the platitudes and the corporate values around innovation as an example, and then I talk to managers and I talk to employees, and what I find out, which is predictable, is that, people who speak up here sometimes are really supported. It depends a little bit on the division they're in, the manager they have. Sometimes people speak up and regret it because they're ridiculed and told, we tried that and it didn't work, and do your job like I told you and stop coming up with strange ideas, and every response in between. So once again, I say to you or to anyone listening, listen, what's going to make you happy? Because if creativity, change, and innovation, for example, are things that make you go, hey, I actually feel a little purpose when I embrace concepts like that. Okay, well, that's great. Just make sure you do the work over the first decade, especially of your career, to find a place who means it when they talk about it.
Yeah. And you're getting me thinking some more, because risk is not rewarded unless you risk and it's successful. If you risk and fail, you're out. If you play the game, I remember seeing this years ago when the stats were showing that in football, a lot of times it was better to go for it on fourth down than punting. But do you want to be that first person to risk your career when NFL coaches get fired left and right? So let's just do what everyone else is doing, even if I know it is because that one time it is going to fail. So I think, it's not necessarily a question, but I think we are a lot of times a risk. We say we want to have change, we want to, try different things, but showing that the reality is we often don't, because we are not rewarded. We can stay the course being good enough, I guess. Is that good? Safe to say?
Absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of concepts that have popped up in popular conversation that first started in the ivory tower in the last 20 years around these topics. One of them is psychological safety. And the reason it became popular, and the reason it still matters, is because people don't feel that it's okay to speak up and say, have we thought of, why are we doing it this way instead of this way? Isn't there something different we can do here? Because they don't feel it's going to be accepted, or they even feel there's going to be negative repercussions associated with rocking the boat, so to speak. And people then get into camps around who is going to support risk or not, support change or not for a given issue. That can really accelerate or harm a career depending on which group you're in. So once again, I say, if you want to, you can play it safe and always go for the safe group and the safe play. That's acceptable, and maybe from some perspective, okay. Safe's a good thing. It's just safe in excess never excited anybody, and no one ever wrote books about some guy that was excessively safe. So what do you want to be? I say to professionals all the time, when you're 65 or whenever you're in your last couple of years of really taking the grind seriously, what do you want to say? I looked back and avoided tragedies. I avoided getting in big trouble. I avoided massive failures, and I survived the rat race. Or do you want to say, I tried a lot of what I really wanted to try, had some huge failures and some massive successes, and I feel like I came as close as I possibly could to my potential? Which one of those two sounds better to you? And I submit to you, there isn't a perfect answer. I know which one I answer to all the time. There isn't a perfect answer, but that's the question you face.
Great. No, that's really interesting. Staying on the leadership topic, what's an underrated skill that you've seen a lot of top leaders exhibit?
It's interesting. It's hit or miss, but the immediate answer that popped into my head when you asked the question is listening. So many people with authority and expertise, when they hear someone ask a question or struggle with an issue, want to go, let me help you think about that, which is a good coaching thing to do. Or sometimes if time is short, just give the answer and ask someone to go do something. That's not wrong. It's wrong in excess when it's never balanced with listening. Listening does a lot for a leader, and they think that their time is so precious, and it is, that they don't want to invest and take the time to stop doing this, which they think means I'm being productive. Being productive when you're closing this and using these goes to the next level. Why? Well, number one, people like to feel heard. Number two, people might tell you something you didn't know. Happens all the time, which means the eventual decision you support or make is going to be better. And they're much more likely to speak up in a conversation with you in the future because they saw you genuinely listening last time. Very useful, very underrated.
Oh, that's great. One question I always ask of the guest, no matter who they are, the subject, is about AI. We seems like we can't get it here all the time. So how is AI impacting leadership and leaders in a way that we may not realize? And would you say that AI is helping people become better leaders, or is it making them become lazier along the way?
I'm no AI expert for sure. But my initial observation as to where we are right now is that it's both. Much like many technologies before, when we had a desktop computer revolution, when Bill Gates was running around saying we're going to have a computer on every desk, um, we thought that meant productivity revolution is coming. Everyone said it from the tallest of mountains. Not true. We've done tons of research since then. What we took this tech, and it helped some people in some ways become much more productive. There's no doubt about that. It also helped a whole lot of other people in a whole lot of other ways become far less productive. Thanks, Internet. Because any given tech can help or hurt. AI is the same way. So, for example, when I write certain things, I use AI for ideas, for research, for first drafts on certain things that I write, and it saves me time. And then I put me into it fully so that no one ever looks at what I do and says, that looks like AI slop. Others who are busy, who trust AI more or who don't care as much, some students today, my youngest is still in college and he's told me some interesting stories about AI. They just use it. And then skills that they're giving away to AI are just withering on the vine inside of them. We've seen this so far in medical capacities. Radiologists are forecast to be extinct in a few years because AI can read graphs of the human body and spot things so much easier, such that they're using it. And then you test the skills of time A before use of AI and time B after a couple of years of using these AI tools. And you ask the doctors to evaluate certain images, and their skills have gone down because they've been letting AI do it for them. So it's definitely pluses and minuses.
Yeah, no, that all makes sense. Want to move a little bit to public speaking. I took your class on that, and over time started to become I think a better public speaker. I think it takes, like a lot of things, it takes reps. But one thing I've noticed, and I've seen it with you, the best public speakers make it look easy. But I know for sure it's not. How did you become a good public speaker?
So you nailed it, at least half of it. Part of it is, what you're born with is real. The genetic lottery is real. And I was born with the gift of gab as a foundation. So I should admit that up front. Having said that, I've answered this question a million times, and I don't care what you were born with. The question is, can you take a meaningful step or two or three beyond that as a speaker? And the answer is yes. Whether you're talking about our conversation in a hallway or you're talking about getting on stage in front of 1,000 people, yes, that is best viewed as a skill one can learn. So how did I do it? I had a little advantage from being born with that gift of gab. And then what you said is just so true in so much of the world of skill development, which is just reps. So when I was starting out, I made sure to not, after the first time someone paid me, I made sure not to become arrogant. Like I don't speak for free anymore. No. For many years, and not anymore, I'm 55 now, but for many years, I still said yes, almost always trying to find a way to say yes so that I could go do this thing I enjoy, help people in the process, and keep building the skill. You got to do the reps. What do you do when a person asks a question and you weren't expecting, because you didn't ask for questions, they just kind of interrupted you while you're speaking? How do you deal with that? Or what if the lights go out? Or what if your story makes someone start crying uncontrollably? All of which I've seen many times. How do you deal with that? Well, the first time you're just reacting. The 20th time, you're much more thoughtful and methodical. So props to you. The answer is get some good education from people who can give you some simple, lucid thoughts, people like me and many others, and then go find ways to do the reps.
Yeah. And, when you're speaking, I'm sure you see, I don't know, half your audience on phones, on laptops. I mean, if you only get half of them, it's probably a win. But I'm sure, how do you get them to pay attention, even just the first couple minutes to grab them? What's the magic so that they won't even think about looking at their phone, looking at their laptop?
Well, I'm not modest. I'll brag. I see that for sure, but I don't see it much. So the answer to your question is someone who is not overly polished. This is me being biased with the style that I developed and still enjoy. Don't be overly polished. There's tons of those folks. They say nothing provocative. They look pretty and manicured like a news anchor. There's tons of them, and they're good people with good messages. But what I find, to answer your question about actually gaining and maintaining engagement with an audience, is less polish, more authenticity. So I'm raw, very similar to what you're seeing right now. It doesn't sound scripted because it's not. emotional. And the difference between what we're doing and what I would do on stage is that up there, it's 80 to 90% storytelling. Just no lecture. I don't use slides, by the way, which is quite rare even for professionals. I just stand there for an hour or whatever it might be and tell stories. I set them up a little. I debrief them a little to make sure there is an educational framework, but that's tiny. It's just a little scaffolding. And then the real reason people go, that was a useful keynote, is because they felt emotionally moved, not because I said something they could logically agree with. I do say something they can logically agree with and find helpful, but the reason they go, I'm rating that high, that was useful, is because I made them feel relatable, I made them feel human, and I made them feel emotions, not just productive thoughts, but emotions.
Yeah, no, good. So, I mentioned 3 years ago, I took several of your classes on LinkedIn Learning. It was great. And since then, I've been, looking at the articles you've posted on LinkedIn, subscribe to the e-newsletter. And we actually got in touch a couple weeks ago because, I reposted one of your articles about end of the year job evaluations, and I didn't totally agree with what you were saying. But I guess, what was your thesis really on? It seemed to be downplaying the importance of performance evaluations. Is that safe to say?
Well, that's safe to say. There are obviously different camps in this debate for sure. And that's good, because we need to be debating these cornerstones of professional life to make sure we push them in positive directives. What I see is that we get lost in saying, this is something we've always done. Of course we have to do it. We need data and something for the record to protect us, back to risk that we talked about earlier. My quick take on that is that no infrequent formal discussion of someone's performance is going to be as useful to them as frequent informal discussions could be. Now, for risk and for data, we're going to do evals of some sort. Not every company does, but all the mediums and bigs out there certainly do. Some do it more than once a year. And that's okay. We could organize and streamline how we do it faster, because here's what we know. Companies don't enjoy it. It's imperfect. Employees do not enjoy it. And there's often bad data. I say we need data, but the data we get is often bad. Hey, so-and-so just rated me, but they only worked with me on one project and I did 5 this year. And it's just an incomplete view of me that they have, and I don't trust that data. Or my boss, who manages 25 people, I'm not sure how much share of mind they have for me. How much did they really see me? So there are imperfections in that process. It's got to be used, but it really should never be more important than frequent, informal, positive check-ins on a regular basis to see how someone's doing and how you can help them.
Yeah, and it's actually funny you mentioned that. One of the things before I became a manager, you'd always hear, when it comes time to the annual review, you shouldn't be surprised at what you get. And now as a manager, I completely see that it's, if the person who works for me is surprised, that's my fault. It's my fault that they didn't get the message. And some people, it might take more than once or twice to get the message. But I think, yes, the informal ones, both good and negative. I think, a lot of times you think of the valuations are negative. No, let's praise, and praise in public, get that out. But also, when there's times in private when it's the appropriate one. So I think, yes, I see your point as, that really should be done that way. No, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, let me validate you, by the way. You're absolutely correct. There should be no surprises at work in terms of how the boss is viewing someone or how an employee is rated. No one should be shocked about that, not if we've done our job correctly.
And the other thing I want to add, I don't think it was in your article, but I was just thinking about it. I always hate, as employee, the self-evaluations. Oh, God. They're going to catch me with something I didn't do. But then I realized, and it happened too, I've told the staff, spend the time on it. Don't think it's an exercise. I can't remember everything you did all year. I keep notes in a file and everything like that. And no, I forgot something. The person got credit for it. So, I think it's, fellow managers, look at those self-evaluations. Don't make it because no one wants to do it, but make it for something that actually does matter to help you.
I would challenge all managers who hear this to realize that if your team's not taking that part of the process seriously, it's because they don't think you are either. And if they seek words and behaviors from you that clearly show an understanding of what they thoughtfully wrote, well, that's just going to make them want to do it even more useful the next time.
So I just want to end on one final article that you did recently about self-confidence. Where's the line between self-confidence and cockiness? A lot of the leaders show the latter more than the former.
Sure. I had a course on that, very popular for years. It's always a core issue when you talk about personal development and success in life in general. It's a great question. It's kind of hard to answer, to be honest, because most people don't know exactly how they're being perceived. They think they do, and they're usually wrong, either a little or a lot, because others see us differently than we see ourselves. That's why it's hard, because this is about how others view you, whether it's confidence or arrogance. Because when that person views me, they go, I love Todd's confidence. When that person views me doing the exact same thing, saying the exact same thing in the same moment that they saw me, they go, he's a little arrogant, because everyone looking at us has their own personality, their own preferences and tolerances, etc. So ultimately, what you can do from a self-awareness perspective is try to get better at seeing how others are viewing you. Watch their face and their body. When you say that thing you're trying to deliver with confidence, watch them. If you're leaning towards arrogance, you'll see less engagement, averted eyes, things of that nature. If you're leading mostly, I know people are different, but if you're leading mostly with acceptable, good confidence, you'll see people more eye contact with you, more affirming, more willing to speak up and talk and continue the conversation. So you got to start reading the room, because every room is different.
Now, do you think even with the eyes that people are honest, as in the sense that every CEO is funny, right? Because the staff knows they better laugh when the person makes a joke. And even, yes, it's one thing, some is almost more of a poker face, you're going to react. But you think even with eyes and body language, you're able to tell, how you are coming across to people that report to you.
So if now you've entered a new variable, which is status differences at work, and when there are levels of hierarchy, there are serious censoring mechanisms that people put on themselves, no doubt about it. But every leader in every culture is different. Sometimes when they say, no, look, I'm not perfect, and you know it, I want your ideas, people can't wait to jump in and give ideas, because they know that person, they believe in that person, they've seen the wins, they've seen the mistakes, and they think that's a whole interesting person. Other cultures, the CEO, and this is far more common, the CEO is about impression management. They really want to just deliver the confidence thing, and they don't want people to get into the authenticity part of their life, because they're worried. They're so worried that that's going to kill. So once again, I say to whoever's listening, look, listen, what's going to make you happy? If that environment where you just got to censor and laugh at the boss's joke is where you think you're going to be safest or happiest, if that makes sense to you, okay, good for you. But there are other places where they don't just talk about psychological safety, authenticity, creativity, innovation. They mean it. And when people speak up, they're taken seriously. Those are faster problem solvers and better decision makers, types of cultures that frankly appeal to me a lot and usually win in the marketplace more effectively. Don't forget, when you hear people like me talking about these issues, yes, there is what you are born with, but the truth is these are best viewed as skills that anyone with the right effort can go learn.
That's a perfect way to end it. I really appreciate you taking the time today. I invite all listeners to visit his website, drdewett.com, DRDEWETT.com. Also follow on LinkedIn. You can subscribe to his newsletter. It's always interesting. And, and you want people to challenge you. You want people to disagree. You just don't want those likes. And I can tell. And I appreciate this, our engagement. So appreciate your time. And thank you for joining us.
My pleasure, man. Take care.
Thank you.